A children's helpline conducted more than 60 counseling sessions on suicide every day last year, with children as young as 10 reporting suicidal thoughts, according to the NSPCC Children's Charity. The figures from Childline represent a 15% increase on the previous year. The NSPCC pointed to widespread concern about the lengthy waiting times young people face before accessing mental health services, but said the statistics also suggested a greater willingness on the part of young people to seek help. One 14-year-old girl told a counselor, "I want to end it tonight. I've written a suicide note and have everything ready." More than 2,000 young people who called the helpline were considered actively suicidal, having taken initial steps to end their own lives, including writing a note, giving away meaningful items, or planning their death. The youngest child actively planning suicide was 12. NSPCC Chief Executive Peter Wanless said, "We have never seen figures like these before, and they are a blunt wake-up call." Some young callers had already sought professional support, and asked Childline counselors to act on their behalf to get help more quickly. Without appropriate support for young people, many are shouldering their troubles single-handedly and turning to Childline only when they reach crisis point, a spokesman said. The statistics, published on Tuesday in Childline's 2016-17 annual review Not Alone Anymore, were described by Helpline founder Esther Ranson as tragic. She appealed for more volunteers to join the helpline, which is currently only able to answer 3 out of 4 calls due to growing demand. When Childline launched over 30 years ago, I remember children usually felt suicidal because they were being hurt by someone, she said. Now young people tell us they are overwhelmed by mental health issues taking them to the brink of suicide. In 2016-17, Childline counselors delivered 22,456 sessions about suicide, up from 19,481 the previous year. Of those, 2,061 counseling sessions involved a young person who was considered to be actively suicidal, a 9% increase on the previous year. Young people were most likely to be counseled about suicidal thoughts on a Monday evening, and most preferred to talk online rather than by phone, with 70% of children talking to counselors via the charity's chat service or by email. According to the NSPCC, suicide is the 3rd most common reason for girls to contact Childline, and the 5th most common for boys. Mental health issues, family relationships, and self-harm were other top 3 issues mentioned in suicide counseling sessions. Other young callers raised concerns about sexual and gender identity. One 13-year-old boy, who came out to a friend and went on to be bullied at school, said, "I would tell a teacher, but I don't want to have to talk about my sexuality with school. It's all got so overwhelming before that I've thought about just ending it all." Some said they were using alcohol and drugs to help them cope, while sexual abuse was also a recurrent theme. "I've attempted suicide a few times before and I'm having the urge to do something bad tonight," one 16-year-old girl said. "I was sexually abused by my stepdad for years. When my family found out, they disowned me. I normally cope by self-harming. Can you please help me?" Wanless said, "We must face the painful reality that many young people feel so overwhelmed by their problems they have considered taking their own precious lives. Young people must know life is worth living and they can lead a life rich in possibilities and happiness. When they are suffering from problems, it's vital they get the right help swiftly before these issues snowball into suicidal feelings or even attempts to end their lives." Responding to the Childline figures, the Liberal Democrats called on the government to increase funding for children's mental health in schools and the NHS. Education spokesperson Layla Moran said, "The Department for Education's own research shows that funding cuts are preventing schools from offering mental health support to pupils. We also know that too often, NHS funding intended for children's mental health is diverted to other priorities. This means outrageously long waiting times and young people even being turned away. Support for young people experiencing mental ill health is being squeezed from every side, and that simply cannot be allowed to continue. You can hang on until you hear back. It's a reason to live." Calais, 18, first contacted Childline shortly after she moved to secondary school. She came from a small primary school and found the numbers at her new grammar school overwhelming. She also struggled with the pressure to do well. "I remember getting an A in an exam and getting a detention and having to resit it because it wasn't an A*.